The Galactic Assembly was the most powerful council in the known universe. It was made up of the strongest alien empires, species that had ruled the stars for thousands of years. They controlled trade, diplomacy, and most importantly, war. In the grand chamber of the assembly, representatives from hundreds of civilizations gathered. The hall was filled with deep voices, strange alien clicks, and mechanical sounds from cybernetic species. At the center of the room stood High Chancellor Vorketh, a towering figure from the Zorthan Empire, the most feared military power in the galaxy. His reptilian scales glowed under the artificial lights, his golden armor reflecting his status as a warlord. Vorketh slammed his clawed fist on the podium. "Let us speak of the humans," he growled, his voice booming. "A species so small, so weak, and yet they refused to submit." A ripple of laughter spread through the assembly. The Ilksari, a telepathic species known for their cold logic, hummed in amusement. The Vrakt, a race of insectoid warriors, clacked their mandibles in agreement. Even the synthetic beings of the Xalax Dominion, who rarely expressed emotion, let out a series of amused beats. "They are arrogant," said a three-eyed senator from the Ruvek coalition. "We gave them a choice. Submit to our rule or be crushed." And they refused. The laughter grew louder. A hologram flickered into existence in the center of the room. It displayed Earth's tiny fleet, a mere handful of ships compared to the unstoppable war armada of the Zorthan Empire. The largest human battleship was barely half the size of the Zorthan destroyer. Their weapons were outdated, their technology primitive. "They call themselves warriors," a Vrak general sneered. "I call them insects, waiting to be stepped on." More laughter, more arrogance. A transmission from humanity had arrived a few days earlier. It was simple, with no threats, no pleas for mercy. Just a warning. Proceed at your own risk. It was ridiculous. What could a few human ships possibly do against the greatest fleet in the galaxy? High Chancellor Vorketh leaned forward, his golden eyes gleaming with amusement. "Then it is decided. We will erase humanity from the stars. Let them serve as an example to all who dare defy the assembly." An unanimous vote of destruction was cast. The Zorthan war fleet, thousands of battleships, dreadnoughts, and cruisers, was ordered to Earth. Victory was guaranteed. The Galactic Assembly continued to laugh. They had no idea what was coming. The Zorthan war fleet arrived in Earth's sector with overwhelming force. Thousands of massive warships, each bristling with weapons powerful enough to shatter moons, came out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Their captains were confident, their gunners prepared for target practice. Humanity's response: silence. From the bridge of his flagship, Grand Admiral Jorvak of the Zorthan Empire grinned as his massive scaled hands moved across the holographic battle map. "Look at them," he sneered, "hiding like frightened animals." The Zorthan fleet's advanced scanners swept the system, expecting to find a desperate human battle formation. Instead, they found almost nothing. A few scattered human warships floated near Earth's orbit, old, small, and comically outmatched. "Pathetic," one of Jorvak's officers scoffed. The Zorthan warlord issued a single command: erase them. From the Zorthan fleet's forward lines, thousands of plasma cannons ignited the void. Blinding beams of energy tore through space, burning a path toward the human ships. The few visible human vessels didn't even move. They simply sat there, waiting for the inevitable. Impact. The small human fleet exploded instantly, or so it seemed. Sensors confirmed direct hits, and Zorthan officers cheered. Their weapons had disintegrated humanity's defenses in mere seconds. The battle was over. Or so they thought. Then, something strange happened. The debris from the destroyed human ships flickered, as if they weren't real. Illusions, holograms. Confusion spread across the Zorthan fleet. Their mighty warships, designed to track enemy heat signatures, weapon energy, and gravitational distortions, had been deceived. The human fleet hadn't been there at all. Then, a transmission came through. Human voices. Calm. Cold. We tried to warn you. Alarms blared. Zorthan ships detected a massive energy surge. Something was warping into the system, but not from normal hyperspace lanes. It was coming from inside their own formation. And then, they arrived. Out of nowhere, hundreds of human warships materialized directly above the Zorthan fleet. Ships that were massive, far larger than any human vessel ever recorded. Their designs were unknown, their technology impossible to comprehend. Jorvak's heart pounded. What is this? The Zorthan Empire had expected an easy conquest. Instead, they were surrounded. For the first time in his long military career, Grand Admiral Jorvak felt something he had never known before. Fear. The Zorthan Empire's war fleet, the mightiest force in the known galaxy, had warped into Earth's sector with complete confidence. They had expected a swift, effortless annihilation of the human species. They had expected pathetic resistance, a desperate last stand, and a quick victory. Instead, the unthinkable had happened. Human ships, hundreds of them, had teleported directly into their formation, a maneuver no species in the galaxy had ever achieved before. It was impossible. The laws of physics forbade such precision in teleportation. Ships emerging from hyperspace needed safe distances to avoid collisions, time to adjust their positioning, and stable gravity wells to prevent catastrophic errors. Yet the humans had done it flawlessly. Gigantic warships, sleek and terrifying, hovered just above the Zorthan fleet. Their black hulls reflected the distant glow of Earth's sun. They were nothing like the outdated human ships the Zorthans had fought centuries ago. These vessels were predatory, bristling with weapons never before seen in the galaxy. And worst of all, they were already locked on target. "Sir, human weapons are charged," one of Jorvak's officers screamed. His voice cracked with panic. The Zorthan fleet had never faced such an immediate, overwhelming threat. Jorvak's mind raced. How? Humanity was supposed to be weak, a minor species with nothing but outdated warships. How had they built this? How had they hidden it from the rest of the galaxy? How had they developed technology so advanced that even the Zorthan High Command had no knowledge of it? There was no time for answers. A cold, human voice crackled over the Zorthan fleet's communication channels. "You shouldn't have come here." And then, hell broke loose. The entire battlefield exploded into chaos as the human fleet opened fire all at once. Blinding beams of blue plasma lanced through space, each one hitting its mark with terrifying accuracy. Zorthan shields, designed to withstand planetary bombardments, shattered like glass. The impact waves ripped through entire formations, leaving behind only burning wreckage. Jorvak watched in horror as dozens of his strongest battleships disintegrated within the first 10 seconds of battle. "This is impossible," he roared, slamming his fists against the command console. "We are the Zorthan Empire. We cannot be." His words were cut short as a shockwave rocked his flagship. The bridge lights flickered. Emergency sirens wailed. "Damage report," he barked. A trembling officer turned, his yellow eyes wide with terror. "Yes, sir. The humans disabled our shields in a single volley." Jorvak's blood turned to ice. Not even the strongest fleets in the galaxy had ever been able to disable Zorthan shields so quickly. And the human warships weren't stopping. They moved through the battlefield like predators, striking with surgical precision. They ignored crippled ships, focusing only on high-value targets. Their tactics were ruthless, their coordination flawless, as if they had rehearsed this exact battle for decades. Jorvak's officers were shouting now, their voices full of panic and desperation. "Admiral, we've lost 40% of our fleet. Human vessels are bypassing our defenses. Sir, we need to retreat." Retreat. The word burned in Jorvak's chest. The Zorthan Empire never retreated. They had conquered 100 worlds, crushed countless species under their rule. They were the apex predators of the galaxy. But now, they were the prey. Jorvac gritted his teeth, forcing himself to think past the horror unfolding before him. There had to be a way out. He refused to accept defeat. If humanity had hidden their strength for so long, then the Empire could still turn the tide, if they escaped and regrouped. But to do that, they needed a distraction. A terrible, merciless idea formed in his mind. He turned to his weapons officer. Fire on Earth. Silence fell across the bridge. Even his most hardened warriors looked shaken. Sir, you heard me, Jorvac growled. Target their homeworld. If we cannot destroy their fleet, we will burn their planet. It was the ultimate act of brutality, a desperate scorched earth maneuver. If humanity saw that their world was in danger, they might hesitate, just long enough for the remaining Zorthan ships to retreat. His weapons officer hesitated only for a moment. Then, with cold obedience, he activated the ship's planet killer cannons. Jorvac's twisted grin returned. The humans might have won the battle, but he would ensure they lost everything. But then, something happened. The moment the Zorthan cannons charged, the human fleet stopped firing. The chaos vanished. It was as if time itself froze. For the first time in the entire battle, silence fell. And then, they responded. A single human voice, calm and ice-cold, came through the Zorthan fleet's communication system. You just made the worst mistake of your lives. Jorvac's confidence shattered. A deep primal dread settled in his bones, because he knew, in that moment, that the real fight was only just beginning. The silence that followed was more terrifying than the battle itself. For a brief moment, the vast emptiness of space seemed to hold its breath, as if the universe itself was horrified by what was about to happen. Grand Admiral Jorvac sat frozen in his command chair, his claws digging into the armrests as the words from the human fleet echoed through the comms. You just made the worst mistake of your lives. A shiver ran down his spine. He had faced countless enemies in his time, species that had begged for mercy, warriors who had fought to the last breath, entire civilizations that had crumbled before the might of the Zorthan Empire. But never had he felt this kind of fear. This was not the trembling fear of an enemy's strength, nor the panic of an ambush. This was something deeper, something primal. Then it began. Human ships, once methodical and precise, became something else entirely. If before they had fought with efficiency, now they attacked with fury. The calculated strikes of earlier engagements were gone. Now the human fleet moved with a savage, relentless intensity, like predators who had just been given a reason to kill. They were no longer simply winning this battle. They were delivering a message. Blinding beams of ion energy and plasma torpedoes filled the void, tearing into Zorthan vessels with merciless accuracy. Entire formations of warships, each one larger and more powerful than anything humanity should have been capable of facing, were shredded apart in seconds. Jorvac could barely keep up with the damage reports flooding his screen. Sir, the Third Fleet is gone. Multiple battleships destroyed. We can't hold formation. Admiral, they're targeting our escape routes. Jorvac's heart pounded against his ribcage. He had planned for many things. He had planned for resistance, even for heavy losses, but he had not planned for total annihilation. And then, the worst possible thing happened. One of the Zorthan destroyers, a massive warship capable of razing entire cities, attempted to fire its planet-killer cannon at Earth. It was a desperate act, a final attempt to make humanity pay before the Zorthan fleet was wiped from existence. It never got the chance. Before the weapon could discharge, a single human warship, significantly smaller than the Zorthan destroyer, shot forward at impossible speeds. In the blink of an eye, it collided with the destroyer's hull and passed straight through it. Jorvac barely had time to process what had just happened before the destroyer split in two, silently exploding in the vacuum of space. The bridge fell dead silent. No one spoke. No one moved. That was when they appeared. At first, Jorvac thought it was a sensor glitch. His display flickered, struggling to make sense of the readings. But then the realization hit him like a thunderbolt. More human ships were arriving. Not dozens, not hundreds, thousands. They did not arrive through normal warp drives. There were no hyperspace ripples, no standard fleet formations. They materialized into the battlefield as if they had always been there, hidden in the void, waiting for the moment to strike. By the stars, one of Jorvak's officers whispered in horror. This was not a battle anymore. This was a massacre. Human ships swarmed through the battlefield, their movements so fast and precise that the Zorthan targeting systems couldn't even lock onto them. They cut through the Zorthan fleet like blades through cloth. No Zorthan ship could run. No ship could hide. Every desperate attempt to flee was met with merciless pursuit. And then came the final transmission. The same human voice, now filled with cold, unwavering certainty, echoed through every remaining Zorthan vessel. Your empire ends today. Jorvak's vision blurred. His body trembled. His once mighty fleet, the pride of the Zorthan Empire, was gone. Crushed, erased. He had never believed the stories about humanity, the old warnings from ancient races that had vanished long ago. He had laughed at the idea that humans were anything more than a minor species, struggling to survive among greater civilizations. But now he understood. They had never been weak. They had never been helpless. Humanity had simply been waiting. And when the time came to act, they had unleashed hell. The once proud Zorthan fleet was in ruins. The wreckage of mighty warships, once symbols of an empire's dominance, now drifted lifeless in the cold void. Flames flickered in the vacuum, snuffed out as oxygen supplies were exhausted. The battlefield was no longer a contest. It was a graveyard. Admiral Jorvak stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching in stunned silence. The last of his fleet, the final remnants of what was supposed to be an unbreakable armada, were being hunted down. Systematically, mercilessly. And the worst part, the humans weren't even speaking anymore. No final warnings, no demands, no mercy. They simply executed. A Zorthan battleship tried to break away, its engines glowing red-hot as it attempted to flee into hyperspace. It never made it. A single human ship, 1/10 its size, shot forward and disappeared for a fraction of a second. The moment it reappeared, the battleship split into pieces, its hull collapsing as if it had been ripped apart from the inside. Jorvak's claws dug into the metal console in front of him. He had always believed that size and firepower ruled the galaxy, that the Zorthan fleet was unmatched because of its sheer overwhelming force. But humanity had rewritten the rules. They moved too fast, fought too intelligently, and attacked with surgical precision. The admiral clenched his teeth as he turned to his officers. "Send a distress signal to the Empire," he growled. "We need—" "Sir," an officer interrupted, his voice shaking. "The Empire isn't responding." Jorvak's blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" The officer hesitated, but then he transferred the incoming transmission to the main screen. And that was when Jorvak saw it. The Zorthan homeworld, the very heart of their empire, was under attack. No, not just under attack. It was burning. Dozens, no, hundreds, of human ships filled the screen. Massive planetary bombardments rained down on Zorthan cities. The imperial capital was in flames. The skies above it were filled with chaos, burning Zorthan ships and relentless human forces that had already breached the capital defense grid. A message from the Zorthan Emperor himself appeared, his face filled with a terror Jorvak had never seen before. "Admiral," the Emperor's voice shook, his usual arrogance gone. They came out of nowhere. They bypassed our outer defenses like they weren't even there. Our fleets, our strongest warriors, they're all gone. Jorvak felt his legs weaken beneath him. Humanity wasn't just defending themselves. They were erasing the Zorthan Empire from existence. The transmission cut out as the Emperor's palace was engulfed in a blinding explosion. The screen went dark. For the first time in his life, Admiral Jorvac felt true despair. A deep, suffocating silence filled the bridge. Every officer, every soldier, every Zorthan still breathing. They all knew. There was no empire left to return to. This wasn't a war. It was extinction. Admiral Jorvac stood frozen, his claws trembling against the console. The weight of the realization crushed him. The empire was gone. Their fleets had been shattered, their homeworld burned, and their proud civilization had been reduced to nothing but a fading echo in the cold void. The humans had done the unthinkable. They hadn't just defended themselves, they had turned the war into annihilation. "Sir, orders." A voice finally broke the silence. It belonged to one of his last officers, her usually sharp voice now trembling with fear. Jorvac swallowed. His mind raced. He had only one fleet left, barely a handful of ships, and the humans had made it clear there would be no surrender, no negotiations. They weren't leaving survivors. Jorvac clenched his fists. He had two choices. Option 1. Flee. Try to escape to some distant part of the galaxy, hide in the shadows, and wait. But wait for what? The humans would find them. Option 2. One last strike. A desperate final act to leave a scar on humanity, even if it meant dying in the process. He made his decision. "Prepare the remaining ships for a full-speed jump," he growled. "We're taking the fight to their homeworld." The bridge crew stiffened. Even in their despair, their survival instincts kicked in. Attacking the human homeworld. It was madness. But they had no other option. If they were going to die, they would make sure humanity remembered them. The last remnants of the once great Zorthan fleet turned their damaged ships toward one final target: Earth. The Zorthan fleet dropped out of hyperspace, battered but determined. Earth loomed before them, a shining blue jewel in the darkness of space. The last survivors of the once mighty galactic empire had come for vengeance. Admiral Jorvac stared at the planet. His heart pounded. He had expected defenses, but what he saw sent a chill through his bones. A wall of warships. Not just any ships, human dreadnoughts. The same ones that had annihilated his empire. Hundreds of them. Each one a floating fortress, armed with weapons that had turned entire armadas into debris. A transmission crackled through. A human voice, calm and cold. "You should have run." Jorvac's breath caught in his throat. The moment those words ended, the human fleet opened fire. The void erupted in flames. Blinding beams, missile swarms, kinetic slugs. The humans unleashed everything. The Zorthan ships didn't stand a chance. One by one, they vanished. Explosions lit up the blackness like dying stars. Jorvac's ship was the last. Alarms screamed, flames erupted across the bridge, and his vision blurred. He barely managed to lift his head to see the final blast incoming. His last thought was simple. We never had a chance. And then, darkness. The last Zorthan warrior was gone. The empire had fallen, and Earth remained untouched.